We're going to talk about some of the status bar indicators we haven't talked about before, beginning with some security setting indicators, including signatures, whether you have information rights management at work, permission settings. We can have the status bar show whether we are enforcing fixed decimal places. We have the ability to toggle on the mode displays for overtype, end mode, and selection mode. We can have it display whether we are recording a macro or not. And you can set page numbers to be displayed when you're in the page layout view, which will show you are on a given page of a certain number of pages, page 3 of 20, for instance. And we can toggle on or off whether we want it to display the shortcuts to get to the different views. So the status bar indicators, beginning with signatures. The purpose of this is not to go through the functionality of the security settings, which we'll cover in other movies. It's just to show that you can toggle on and off the display for whether these permission levels and signature and information rights management are at work in the workbook. But to go a little bit beyond just an explanation of just describing what's on the screen that you can read yourself, I want to show that you can actually sign your workbook, and a number of things happen when you do that. So I'm going to left click off of that, go back to the backstage area, protect workbook, and add a digital signature. There's different levels of signatures you can add. You can actually have a signature sort of be official by having a third party validate your signature, or you can just add a signature without doing that. The purpose of signing this document is for training purposes. I'm going to sign. The signature has been successfully saved with the document. I'm going to acknowledge that. And a number of things happen. We get an indicator that the workbook's been signed. Of course, we're aware of that. We did it. The permissions has been turned on, so we have a permission level setting. And when you go back inside the workbook, Excel says this workbook has been marked as final. And when I right-click the status bar and left-click signatures, I get an icon added in the lower left-hand corner indicating this workbook has been signed. The downside to this is somebody can left-click this and then remove the signature and edit the workbook anyway. The other security settings, information management policy and permissions, which is related to the information management policy, has to do with information rights management, which is a free service that Microsoft offers where in a corporate environment you can establish access levels for the document itself, and the status bar will indicate that, the information management policy. And further than that, you can establish permission level settings that give individuals access to do certain things within the document. And again, the status bar will indicate that as well. So the next item on the list, and I'm going to turn off the signature indicator, is fixed decimal. This has to do with whether or not you have the option set in the backstage area to automatically insert a decimal place. I'm going to left click off of this and go back to the backstage area, Alt-FT. We're well aware that that's how we get back there. It's in the advanced area at the top where we can have Excel automatically insert, let's say, 2 decimal places. We'll accept the default, acknowledge that, and then when we left click fixed decimal places, we get an indicator that the fixed decimal place functionality has been turned on, so that when somebody enters 50, enter, they know that Excel is automatically going to insert a decimal place. So 1250 becomes 12.5, $1 becomes 1, and so on. The next display that we can toggle on and off is the overtype mode. And that is simply, and I'm going to left click it and turn it on, an indicator as to whether you have the insert button, so that when I go into the edit mode, which I can do by pressing F2, and then I press the insert button, the status bar shows that I am in the overtype mode. So if I have content in there and I type, I'm going to overwrite the content as opposed to move it aside. So showing that quickly, overtype. I'm going to press the insert button after going to the beginning of the text string. And I overtype the content as opposed to, and I'm turning off the insert button, so now I'm not in the overtype mode, having Excel move it to the right as I type. The next indicator we can turn on or off is the end mode. And with this selected, when I'm in a cell and I press the end key, I go into the end mode. How useful this might be or not, I'm not here to say. Skipping down to the selection mode, because that's another mode, with that toggled on, when you press F8, so that you anchor your beginning point, that can be some helpful functionality. And I'm arrowing over and arrowing down. You can left click, or you can actually put a cell address and select very quickly a very large area by using F8 in the name box. With that status bar selection on, Excel tells us we're in the extend selection mode, the selection mode. I skipped one because I wanted to cover the modes first. Macro recording. With that on, and you go to record a macro, you get a little indicator that you're recording a macro. That can be helpful because you don't want to continue to endlessly record a macro. You want to record a series of steps, and then you want to stop recording. So that indicator telling you that you're still recording a macro can be helpful so that you know that you at some point need to stop recording the macro. The next option that we can toggle on and off is the page number option. And with that selected, when you go to the page layout view, left click that, we get an indicator of how many pages we have and what page we are on, page 1 of 20. Deselecting that or toggling that option off, that now disappears. In the last option, View Shortcuts, which is the only one I left on, has to do whether you want the status bar to display the icons to get to the other view settings, the page layout and the page break view. Clicking that on, they come back. So those are the rest of the settings for the status bar. We took a look at some security settings, including whether you have a digital signature at work. We talked briefly about the information rights management, which is a free service where you can restrict access and different levels of access to the workbook itself, or you can even drive that further to the individual access by establishing permissions. You can have the status bar display whether you have the fixed decimal functionality at work. There are several different modes, the overtype mode, the end mode, the selection mode that you can have the status bar display. You can have it display whether you're recording a macro or not, which is helpful. I find it helpful. You can have it display the page numbers when you're in the page layout view, and you can toggle on and off the shortcuts to get to the normal view, the page layout view, and the page break view.